we've gotten to an age where we've got great stories and our children don't want to hear them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
My
It's better
daughters-in-law,
that they don't hear that.
My daughters-in-law just tune me out.
Yeah, right. That's,
but it's a
that's
great story.
Yeah.
He's recording all this.
Hi, it's Misty with ShopTalk magazine and Illume Atelier, and we're here today with Jurgen Volbach and Gordon Andrus, and we're here in Gordon's shop. He was so gracious to let us come over and set our camera equipment up, and we're just gonna have a conversation with the two of them. So let's get this show on the road.
Get this show on the road. Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Hermitage.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here. That's it.
Yeah,
I'm really surprised about that, and it's a big honor to see that what you're doing here and what kind of tools you have and what kinds of works you have done over the years. I see in a lot of books, I see on a lot of conventions, and I'm really surprised
we've
about
been friends for a long time.
The quality that that your work brings, and so that's unbelievable. That's a thing I look always to, and you never have a level that you can say, "Oh, I'm finished with my learning facts, and I'm finished with this or this." And this is a part when I go here in your shop or see your machines. That's the jacks of my fingers to use that.
Yeah, to use them.
So you're also working with metal, not just with leather, and so it's also interested for me. We have the same job. I learned it in my younger years. You know, I'm also an engraving and goldsmith, and so I see that also in your saddle works. And there are not much leather workers, you know, they're working also with silver. The most people are going to a silversmith and let the work done by another one, so they have not the skills for to do it. And if I see also you find working with the stitchel, the engraving, and so I'm really surprised about that, what you're doing if you have a belt and the buckle fits right together. And so that's my interest to know when you begin with your engraving works.
Well, what happened was I was trying to find silver, you know, trying to get silver, and I guess I won't mention any companies, but a famous silversmith, he's I think third generation silversmith. The other saddlery in town was already making silver for them, so he wouldn't sell any to me. And so I was at a show and asked Clint Orms, who's a silversmith, you know, about it, and I was like, I've just got to find some way to coordinate with a silversmith, you know, how to get this to happen. And I tried and tried and tried. And, you know, to try and get the silver to come together, especially then, I wasn't as well known in the industry. Now I'd be able to get silver from almost anybody. But back then, I just couldn't. So I started thinking about also all the bright cut silver, and I wasn't educated in the different styles of engraving. And I was looking down my nose at bright cut, and I've since learned that was very wrong of me to do that. But at the time, the internet hadn't. This was 2003 or 4, 5 maybe, and the internet didn't have as much. These days, you can learn to do anything on there. But the only educational video that I had access to was one that Jeremiah Watt did years and years ago, and it's on bright cut engraving. So I got that, and I got somehow, first I was just hand pushing, and figured out how to sharpen the tools, but that opened me up to what bright cut, Western style bright cut really is. And then when I started to learn more about all the different styles of engraving, I came to realize that, well, it's just part of engraving to have that bright graver to make stuff shiny.
Yeah, right.
And So, but because I was wanting to make the silver tie in with the tooling on the saddle, I thought I would end up doing just single point, like gun style engraving.
Yeah, right.
But here I am getting accustomed. I call this cross-pollination. I talk about that a lot. I'm starting to get an idea about what this bright cut thing is, and where the bright cut is where the background would be in leather.
Yeah,
and so I was like, and then it just hit me, wow, you could do this in leather. I could do these same scrolls in leather.
Right.
And so I started making these bigger scrolls, and I reversed the way they spiral. They usually, most scrolls in leatherworking, at least in Western, in the cowboy saddle world, they kind of spiral up toward the viewer. But I wanted to make them spiral back down, and then I really wanted to get a backbone on them that was nice and round. Because it really intrigued. Well, I used to draw and paint a lot, and knew about shading and all that, and what it is that makes something curve and go back into the distance. And I just wanted to get to where when you look at that scroll, you know what it looks like all the way around it. Because there's enough information on that surface of it.
Right.
And so then those first scrolls in leather didn't have any background, because I was playing with that. I hadn't really quite probably realized that the bright cut is the background, although I'm not sure. But anyway, they evolved and started being more, I was getting more and more influenced by ancient acanthus. And not from engraving, but from architecture. And so I started learning more and more about that, and was getting better at laying out patterns. But now these two art forms feed each other. And they're so similar. And I realized at some point that, except for wood, all the materials that I work with are classified as plastic materials. And they're not elastic. You can mold them. And I talked to a blacksmith years ago that told me that when he makes these flowers out of steel. And he said he made them first out of clay. So, and I was like, oh, they're both plastic materials. One has to get really hot before it becomes plastic. And so that all just feeds into it. And I'm like, I'm not afraid of a new raw material, because I can see the similarities in how it gets, in how you're going to work it. And so it was natural to just, well, I've always made my own stamps. My grandfather, he wasn't very healthy when I knew him, but he worked in there wasn't a raw material, there wasn't fair game to him. So I got some of his leather stamps that were made out of nails and stuff. He taught in a high school shop class.
And I will talk to that when I begin with also that engraving work in leather, that I use my goldsmith tools or my silversmith tools. The time. And so when I think to the time that I also have when I see the baskets or whatever, and I see these forms, and I think at first, okay, make it like this, make two lines and give them two kicks, and then you have the baskets, and I'm making spaces like this. It was 3 days tooling, and it looks bad.
Oh, well.
Nothing. It wasn't. You cannot go with a screwdriver. It's short like this, on a line like this. You have waves. You can make what you want. And so I think, okay, what's going on? And then I was thinking to my engraving work, when we make the bright cuts also, and I think, okay, use a scalpel in the leather. And I cut it out of the leather, but it was always the fluffy stuff. And I think, okay, that's not the right way. That looks nice, but not like that. What the people do.
But you didn't stop just because you didn't like it.
I was always cutting in the leather and cut it out of it. I think, that's not clean. That thought, okay, that works, but it's not clean. And then a friend of mine who's a horse rider, he said, no, you must hit that in the leather, and then it works. I say, okay. I was looking at, but this was in the 80s, and I have no idea about leather.
Yeah.
And the first, what I'm doing, you must have a piece of leather. I had a piece black leather, but it was a chrome leather, and I hit that and I say, what? It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
What you tell me? It can't work. You hit it, you have the mark, and it melts away. So I stopped there in first. It was a year later. I was going with my father to Daytona. On a tour, and so we was on the time that I didn't know that there is the bike week in this time there, and we was going over the bike week, seeing all the Harley Davidson, and I see the fantastic saddle works, and I think, hey, what's that? These are the scrolls you make as in small on a Zippo lighter.
Right.
That's doing that was there.
You could make the leap because of your previous experience.
Yeah, and I see that, and I think, okay, when you're coming home, so I asked someone there, what kind of leather is this? A vector leather. So they give me a piece that was on that was the self-working on the bike week, and I said, how wonderful! I put that in my bag, and I told them that was the first that we had no internet in the beginning of the 80s. That was the problem. So we must go.
Really,
we
not
had
till the 90s.
A belt maker, industry belt maker in town, and I asked him. I go with this piece to him and say, he says, yeah. Vector leather, and just show me his side. I say, wonderful, exactly that's what I need for it to do. And I cut it in a little piece, and then I begin with, he told me also that I must wet the leather a little bit, and that you have must tools and so on. And he told me, there's one address in Munich and one address in Berlin where you can buy the shops. It's a Tandy leather shop.
Okay,
said,
there was a Tandy leather shop.
There was 2 Tandy leather shops. This was the beer gallery from René Behrens. He was one of the first European also. They make a lot leather stuff and so, and he was there. I was not there, and I have no idea about leather. So he also had the German Leather Guild. And so he's also making now leatherworks, and he was traveling also around the world. I don't know him in person, but sometimes we see us in on pictures or whatever. We know us. And so I ordered there things and also the leather stuff, and then I got my first Tandy catalog. I say, wow, the world is open. I saw the Elstoman books. I buy some Elstoman books, and that was exactly that where all people would begin in this time. We had our A140, exactly that for the background, exactly that for a corner, 70s. For a border, and I buy tools, and then I make my landscapes and all this stuff, and make my, first saddlebags, the first saddle, but with Elstoman toolings on it, and that was easy. You can see how to color that. But that was not the problem. So I'm also a painter. I have the knowledge about painting or landscapes or whatever it is. For me, it was a heaven to have these tools and to have this stuff. And I remember also the time when he told me the first time, I have buried kings. He said, I say, okay, then send me a set. So I got my first set, bevelers, real crisp bevelers with all that stuff. And there was a veiner, there was a set to make certain style toolings. And when I get the package, I think, where are the numbers?
Where are the numbers?
What can I do with this stuff? I have no ideas what I can do with all this stuff, what you give me. I put it in my side and never used it. I pay about 1,000 D-Mark in this time for all the tools. It was a bunch full, and I never used them. I was working with my Elstoman tools, so I have the bigger flowers and all this stuff, and it works. And later, when I was in the US, I was on a Texas trip with some friends also with bikers, and one of these guys living in Kerrville in Texas, and he say, hey, we have also here a saddle maker. I will show you his shop. And so that's the shop where Clint Arms is at now in his shop, and Don Atkinson was in this shop at this time, and I had the fun to see what he's doing. That was a surprise of all the stuff what you have on the wall, the pictures from John Wayne over Frank Sinatra, like whatever, where he made boots for, or he made a
all
saddle
the people
for.
that he made
yeah,
stuff
it was
for.
a real old school, say, cowboy. And
Yeah.
I see the geometrics on his saddles, and it was fantastic to see that.
to see
The smell in his workspace.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, and I was working there a little bit. I say, I also a leather worker from Germany, real proud. I'm a leather worker. And he was smiling. And then he showed me with this, I never used before a swivel knife.
Oh, really?
No, I have no
How-
idea about a swivel
You
knife.
didn't
I
get
see that.
one
Yeah, I
in
see that in the El Stillman book, but I would make that on my old tour with the screwdriver with the mallet.
The first time I got my grandfather's set of tools, there was no swivel knife.
Yeah.
And my grandmother gave them to, loaned them to me, and then, so I was like, well, and here's this lacing punch.
Yeah.
So I walked around it.
Right.
With
It's the same that with the screwdriver.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit more screwdrivers.
Yeah.
So smaller one and bigger one, and I sharpen that right so that that have a nice tongue, real sharp, and so that works.
Yeah.
And I say I have a good feeling to follow the line, and I think okay that's it, and that works. And so
I don't need this swivel
he
knife.
grabbed this swivel knife. I saw that in the catalog, but I think, what you will do with that? You make that with your screwdriver, it's good. You must not pay one. You must pay for that, and I will save my money a little bit. And this
You
time
could have just put a bottle cap on the tip of it.
whatever. Serge Volken is working like this also today. He's also sometimes working with his old screwdriver.
Right.
He's sharp enough, and he got that. But I have not the idea to cut with this screwdriver. I hate it.
Yeah. So you were chasing.
Yeah, and
like
then
in
I saw
steel.
the first time that someone is using a swivel knife, and he makes in minutes on a scrap. I have this in my workspace, so I'm really proud about this piece. He makes it by hand, just he makes the flower, but old school, I like to say a little bit Arizona style like that, and he make the flower, the leaves and the stems, and a little bit border stems around him, and a little bit basket, and say, that's it. I said, wow. I was surprised about that, how he makes the flower. I think at first what he is doing, and then I saw the flower when it was ready. Unbelievable.
Right.
And it's also that he makes some saddles and his stuff without a drawing.
Right.
You have the fork, and then he began to swivel,
Yeah.
and then he was ready. That
was real common in Texas.
Yeah, and I think it's also that you have a lot of knowledge about all this stuff, what he was doing, and so
in
I was
Sheridan,
really...
they used more tap-offs.
Yeah.
They scribe a circle and use a tap-off. And then they could start cutting from there. And I've always wondered about that. I've got to ask Bill King sometime. I think they did scribe it on there most of the time first. But I know that Bill Gardner could have just cut those lines in. He and Don King could have done that. And they got saddles stamped pretty darn fast, and for what they were doing in Sheridan compared to the rest of the country, I'm talking like 50s and 60s, 70s, and it really came into its own in the 70s, and it was so much more refined.
You see that if we go to the Saddle Museum and the saddlery, in the Don King saddlery, and you see the difference between some years before and that what they're doing down with the Sheridan style.
Some of his first saddles are in there, and they look like what Jim Jackson's father, who worked at Ernst. They were still circles. But they were big circles, big circles, and. Don kind of took these flowers from Visalia, it's California rose, and then refined it and refined it and refined it. And he and Bill Gardner, I think, working together, they really came up.
That's also what is in the book, what everybody can read when you see the book from Don Butler.
But I don't think the quote Sheridan style. Bill Gardner got really mad when you called it Sheridan style. I interviewed him, and he'd had a stroke by then, and so he wasn't really outspoken. But I said the words Sheridan style, and he just hollered, Sheridan style, that's Don King style. And I was like, okay. I stand corrected. And
What's he say for his style?
Well,
what you say, what do you think?
when
What
he's
is
doing
it?
it, he's doing Don King style, is what he said.
You said that's a Don King style for when he do this, yeah.
And
But this, when I see these are real similar
the
from
two
the
of
style.
well, they work together.
Yeah.
From the time, see, Don was older than Billy.
Yeah.
And Bill Gardner's father worked for one of the big ranches there.
Yeah.
And they had polo horses, and Don made, he was putting together saddles for Ernst.
Yeah.
And I can't remember now how they got acquainted, but Billy just really wanted to learn to do this stamping. So almost right from the beginning, they were working together.
Yeah.
And they made their own tools. He said they were pretty crude, and I know what that's like. Some of my early tools are pretty crude.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, they developed tools to do what they wanted to have them do. And I don't think there's any way that there wasn't interchange between them in their thinking at the time. I'm sure people could watch this conversation and have a difference of opinion with me about that. But I've just always felt like Billy and Don were a team.
Yeah.
And at one time, they tell me that you couldn't tell which one of them had done the stamping.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so.
The Queen of England visited Sheridan. Of course, there's some incredible horse ranches there. And their shop was in the basement at the time. She came down, and the story is that Billy never stopped stamping.
Okay, she was
She
standing
walked
there.
behind him and looked over his shoulder.
It's the same like me.
And he never
If someone's
stopped.
coming in, okay, sit down, but I must work. I have to work. Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wherever it comes.
I love those stories.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I was in college, my experience wasn't unlike yours. It's just that we had tandy stores everywhere.
Yeah.
Of course, I was in central Utah.
Yeah, it's also that you as young guy, boy or
I
whatever,
was
you
in
can
junior
learn that
high
also
school.
sometimes on school or
Well, yeah,
that you have
yeah.
that.
I never did have that, but they did at one time teach it in Richfield in the high school, and the kids, of course, would take the stamps and smash them into the stone and ruin them. But my grandfather taught leather work. That little purse up there, he made that there. That was my high school notebook. But
But a lot of people were happy when they do a notebook like this today.
Well, I was pretty happy then, but I was about, I was 15 or 16 probably when I made that.
But it's also, I think you can, I think sometimes you can be a good saddle maker over generations, but if you have not the artistry in your veins, so there are not many people that have the right feeling for artistry.
Right.
So this is the same like with painters.
Right.
You can want that you want to paint a picture, but the difference is
you can
to
have
do
a
that.
desire, but I think that the mechanics of it can be taught pretty much to anybody that wants to do it. And the way what's made me believe that is, now as far as the artistry part of it goes, the creative mind, that's something that's genetic. And
absolutely, I think so. To get that, what you have in your brain, in your fingertips.
I know that it is. It runs in families, and it comes with its own set of difficulties. You know, that artist temperament they talk about. There's your brain's working.
Yeah, that's a gene, what you have inside.
Your brain's
sometimes
different.
you lost that in the family, so you have two generations. There's nobody paint or making some things.
Or the right combination of genes comes together. Like my siblings and I are all really creative. every one of them, and I'm the oldest of 7. So, but then my cousins, nothing.
No idea, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. No interest, no nothing.
No, nothing. So there was some combination.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's hard for someone to make things if they have not the gene, they have the idea to do that, but it's really strong for him to learn or to understand what is going on.
If it's in your genes, you don't have a choice.
No.
And
sometimes you cannot
learn
that.
That's
you really don't. And the actor that played Monk on TV, I listened to him being interviewed on the radio years ago, and you know, he had enough. He said I had enough talent that I could develop to really become an actor. But there's a lot of people that still don't have a choice, that don't have that extra part, and I'm not sure I agree with that. They maybe just didn't have the opportunities. Yeah. And because when I look at my earliest work, it looks like anybody's earliest work.
You don't want to see my first work at this.
Yeah. I like to keep it and have it to show people because...
I do that always.
Yeah, because it's...
I don't hidden that. I don't want to hidden that.
No.
I want to see every time that I remember that that is your beginning.
Well,
and now
you walked right in and saw an old saddle of mine, and I can, you know, but I do know where that piece of work sits in my history.
Yeah.
And I know what I had freshly learned, and what ideas I brought to the. You know, with that particular saddle, I'd finally started to get the idea of how to connect circles the way, you know, in king style.
Yeah.
And, but the flows got problems, and some of my early, you know, attraction to acanthus leaves is rough in it, but they're in it. That's where it happened. That's where I talk about being like an old steer. And I'm just going from one stand of bunch grass to the next.
Yeah.
And I look up at the end of the day and don't even know how I got where I'm at, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the progression if you're open to, if you're not afraid to follow your own ideas.
Yeah.
And then you can develop. I've known people that were afraid of what the other guys would say, you know, behind their backs, and they're afraid to try something new and different, but they still are having ideas.
Yeah.
And I just say, well, the only time I would ever call something a rule is when it's what I have to do to get me to that result. So I'm going to come up with a plan of procedure, or these tools, or maybe this tool that's for, in the traditional realm, for this one thing, will do this other thing, then and then a new idea for a tool comes from that. And then,
right.
And it really does just blossom on you. It doesn't. The number of ideas that come from a new idea is just incredible.
Yeah.
And then someone will come in and be looking at it and be like, well, what if you did this? And I'm like, how did I not think of that? I mean, that's the most obvious thing, you know, in the world. And it's just being open to both the idea that, you know, the dread that you would ever stop learning.
Yeah. It's also, I have the luck that I come from a town like Cologne. It's a 2,000 years old tradition. If you walk in the old town, if you go in the church, if you look on the ground from the church, wherever you are, you see scroll works with grape leaves, with grapes, with acorn, with oak leaves, with whatever. You look on the next corner, you see the woodwork in the church. the same stuff again, but in a fine detail work. Unbelievable. Look
Unbelievable.
at the weevil. And so you get sometimes inspirations if you walk these ways, or you see the old furniture from the 18th or 1700th century. You say, wow, that's an idea for a border. That's an idea to do this or so. And that's inspiring. You don't need a book, just books to have a look at. This is just the walk.
Once you have
to open your eyes.
Once you have your basic skill set, then you don't need any books. You know, then the world is the book.
It's open full.
You know, I studied the European cathedrals I had an art history professor who was incredible.
Yeah.
He was hard, but we had to memorize all these major cathedrals. And, you know, so I was in my 20s and seeing this stuff. And then I remember when I saw somebody, when I was in graduate school, someone said, you know, that I'd done a little presentation in a class about, you know, why I'm here and why I was, and so they another woman in the class, because I'd shown pictures of the saddles and stuff, and she said, you need to look at Louis Sullivan's work. So I went up to the library, and there was like a whole just stack of them, and you know, and he was the architect for the Chicago State World's Fair, and just incredible stuff. You know, I've got F.O. Baird's book up there, and I got that in high school. And when I first looked at this one book, was just a bunch of friezes, like for trim, and I was like, wow, that looks like F.O. Baird. Then it just slowly, I remember thinking, oh no, this guy's classically trained. This guy has inherited in a straight line from the Greeks, through classical architecture, right down through the Victorians. And no, F.O. Baird kind of looks like this. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh, cowboys. Everybody else in the world went to Bauhaus, straight block buildings and all this stuff, but the cowboys kept doing the same old decorations. And I was like, okay, that's how I inherited this. That's incredible. So
that's unbelievable. I learned also when I began with my work. I was 14 years old, and I was too young normally to understand what you're doing there. And the master of mine was his name was Rudolf Niebala. He was working as our company was working for the Vatican, for the popes. We make the seals and all the stuff for the popes, And so this was the year also when Pope Johannes died after 3 months. So we work in this year for 3 popes. The pope before, the pope who was died, and the new pope. So we make all the seals for that guys, and also for the high society in this world, for the cardinals and all this stuff. So they ordered that, and for the English crown, for the queen, and for the high society from the knights, what there was in England and wherever in the world. That was his. He have a good history, but you can't read many in the internet because it was in a time we have just books. They have not digital things. They have a bunch of walls full of books with when he was looking for things, or when he was making things. He looked in books, or he was a drawer, unbelievable good drawer, and also that learning from the goldsmith. This was a lady in Germany, Elisabeth Tresco, is one of the most important goldsmiths in Germany, living goldsmiths. Now she's dead, and she makes work. These 2 guys coming together on the weekend, and they was looking what they can do with different techniques and whatever. And always, when I was young, I will have Saturday. I don't need to go to work. We have free on Friday, 3 o'clock, go home. Normally, and you say always, if we have fun, you can come on Saturday and can have a look what we are doing. And I say, well, is he crazy? I have free time. I want to have parties. So the first one, I don't understand that. We was young, and so. But after
you don't
a year,
look like you ever partied.
So after a year or today, I'm really angry about that. That I have not that I not know that or get that chance to see more and more.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so I was really happy when he was 75 years old. I was his last student there, and I still worked there for 3.5 years, and I'm going again for 3.5 years to learn goldsmith with certification. You must make that in Germany with certification.
It's not a bad thing, yeah.
And then the next 3 years I got a half year longer, shorter to make stone setting, diamond setting, and so that's what I want. He say the best what you can do, make your engraving, make your good job, and then learn goldsmith, learn stone setting, and you have all the jobs together so that you can make anything sell. And it helps me. I have 15 years long a jeweler shop in Cologne, and so it helps me all the days, especially in front of Christmas, when someone came the week before and say, hey, I must have an order like this and this with stones like this and this. Normally, the people say, we are done. We cannot make this job. We must give that away to set the stones and so on. I can say, wonderful, you can do it. Make a nighttime and earn money. That's where I earn my money also by 30 years ago. That's it. Before
I've got a wedding ring coming up, and when you can say, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. It's also that what we learned in the earlier time is now today you go to GIS and say, give me 3 stitches like this size, this size, this size, you get it. When we had a problem with a pokal, a drinking pokal in silver, and you must go in the deep part, so we had not the GIS system.
No.
That was, so we have the stitchel and the master cam, we have our steel, they harden that steel, or they bring that in form, make a bow inside so that you can work in the deeper ground, and then you fit them, then you know that he comes in the fire again, and you have the right temperature, and then that's what you learn to see that when it comes up blue and violet, that you have exactly the color, and give them the shock that you can say, okay, the tip is not too hard, not too soft, that you have the right angle, and then you can work with this. Nobody learns that today.
No, not to make their own tools.
That's it.
Like
not to make their own tools. That's why I also make sometimes the tools for the students, because for me it's easy.
Yeah.
This is a rough tool, itself. It's not a problem to give them a
no, you make modeling tools for your students.
Also the same that what you're doing, a little bit smaller, more that also with the round body, because I work every day with this and I know it's good. Yeah. The other tools you can also buy tools from wherever are all good, but these tools we use sometimes we know the special work with this, and also the Chinese or Japanese people using this works these tools with more rounding on the ground, so you have a better feeling, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if you know what you must have and you can do that, that's the best.
That is.
That's a treasure. That's a treasure.
Yeah.
That you have always an idea what you can do to fit your work.
To fit the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be stamping away and like, this beveler isn't reaching in there.
Yeah.
So I run out here to the lathe and knurl
Yeah, you show me that sometimes that you have some bevelers that you have them real bomb we show that. And so I look to my tools and think, oh, that's too straight, give them one more. And you see that works. That's just sometimes an idea, or just that you see something. I think when he's walking around wherever and you see something what is from interest, you have that in your brain. That is so if you have the same situation some 3 months later or whatever, it comes up and you have it and you make it. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we could talk and talk for
Jurgen and
so
I could
much
go-
longer.
Yeah,
We could go for days.
This
there,
was
so.
great, though.
Yeah.
I think
The best where normally this is in Germany we'll say this is a real dry evening. Normally you must have a bar here with a beer or whiskey. Then it's better to talk. House over house, yeah. But it was a pleasure to do that and to meet you here and speak
likewise,
with
yeah.
some words with you. That absolutely
Yeah, mein
really
Freund.
nice.
Yeah,
You're always
Mein
welcome.
guter-
You know.
mein guter Freund.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words in German. Yeah, immer gerne wieder. Yeah.
I think just sitting here and allowing you two to have this conversation, thanks for not making me do much. I think that was way better. But I just feel like some of the overarching themes that came out of this was obviously it's key to never, ever, ever quit learning,
Yeah.
to constantly seek knowledge in all
It's
areas.
my greatest dread is that, well, there's two, that I just won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I've learned that I'm never going to stop learning.
Yeah, never.
So that isn't a dread. It's
Yeah.
that I'll have to stop learning.
Yeah. Like
That's the
Circumstance.
that's the part of a lifespan that
But that's also a thing from me. That's I learned so much. I have so much knowledge in my brain,
Right.
and that's it. And I get so much help in earlier years,
Right.
where he was grabbing.
Oh,
out
yeah,
where
yeah.
I can know that.
No.
And today I'm really happy when someone
Right.
is coming in my workspace and say, "Hey, can I?" I say,
When
"Come
I
on,
pass it
sit
along,
down,
yeah.
make it. Don't
Well,
speak about this.
It
Make
took
it."
all these years to get this in here.
Yeah.
I want it to get out of here.
Right,
and
right.
and
And I'm
keep
really happy to
going.
found someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes also all in the workshops that you see people, wow, they have a talent. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable that you see that and you can find
I've
it.
had
and
a few
you can
students
push that a
that,
little bit, and
yeah.
so that makes fun to see that other people also can do that, or they say in first, I can't.
Yeah.
Right.
So this has been awesome. So grateful for both of you for spending some time with us.
English was good enough.
Yeah.
It was great.
Sehr gut. Yeah.
You know, I guess one final note, never stop learning. Even though most of us work independently in our own shops, get together with each other. Take opportunities to get together, share stories, share
Never give up.
ideas. Yeah, learn from one another and keep going, right? Just keep going. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time.